Unraveling Epistemological Boundaries and Power Knowledge in the Out of Africa Theory, Introducing Simultaneous Quantum Biogenesis Theory, by J.N.S, published by Nocte University. Introduction: Understanding the epistemology of the Out of Africa Theory, and the power dynamic inherent in the construction of knowledge itself. The Out of Africa theory of human origins suggests that all modern humans descend from a common ancestor that lived in Africa approximately 200,000 years ago. This theory has influenced our understanding of human evolution and migration, but it is important to question its epistemology, or how we know what we know. It is crucial to examine who created and disseminated the Out of Africa theory, and how their identities and perspectives may have influenced the construction of this knowledge. It is also important to consider who benefits from this theory, especially regarding power dynamics and social hierarchies. Taking a critical stance toward existing theories and narratives is essential to create a new pedagogical approach to constructing knowledge regarding human origins. This approach must be centered on asking questions and examining the underlying assumptions and biases that shape our understanding of human history. As a Black American, my new pedagogical approach focuses on empowering melanated communities to examine the knowledge disseminated about them and their history critically. Rather than accepting the Out of Africa theory as an absolute truth, this new approach would encourage individuals to question the underlying assumptions and biases that have shaped this narrative. It would also prioritize the voices and perspectives of Black Americans in the construction of knowledge, as their experiences and histories have often been overlooked or erased in traditional narratives of human evolution and migration. Understanding how knowledge is constructed from the vantage point of power is essential in preventing the psychological enslavement or control of melanated communities. When someone can convince you what to believe about yourself, they can shape your identity and erase your cultural heritage. This is particularly true for Black Americans, historically subjected to systemic racism and oppression. To prevent the ethnocide of Black Americans, it is crucial to challenge all schools of thought we did not create. This includes questioning the Out of Africa theory and other dominant narratives that may erase or minimize our community's unique identities and histories. It is also essential to recognize the diversity and complexity of dark-skinned communities outside of Africa, such as the indigenous people of North Sentinel Island, the Jawara people of India, the people of Melanesia, the people of Fiji Island, Jamaicans, Haitians, Australian Aboriginals, and much more. These are all unique groups with cultures and ethnicities that cannot be reduced to a single origin narrative. The Out of Africa theory has the potential to erase the unique identities and histories of dark-skinned people who have lived on other land masses for hundreds or tens of thousands of years. This is because the theory strongly emphasizes African origins and migration, which could suggest that these individuals do not have a legitimate claim to their own cultural heritage, identity, and land. This theory makes it easier to ethnocide a people. Moreover, the Out of Africa theory could be used as a tool of colonization and oppression by encouraging all melanated people on other continents to identify solely with Africa and disregard their current landmass's cultural and historical significance. This can lead to erasing local knowledge and traditions, making it easier for outside forces to exert control and influence over these communities and land. It is essential to recognize that the Out of Africa theory is just one perspective on human origins and migration. Some alternative narratives and interpretations may be more inclusive and empowering for melanated people in Africa and other continents. By acknowledging the complex and multifaceted nature of human history and identity, we can work to create more inclusive and equitable societies that value diversity and celebrate the contributions of all cultures and communities. I propose a new approach to studying human origins that challenges the Out of Africa theory and emphasizes human origins rooted in biochemistry, quantum physics, electromagnetism, and biogenesis. By exploring the chemical processes and melanin that underpin the formation of life, we can gain a deeper understanding of human evolution and the unique identity of every melanated group on the planet. This approach is necessary to prevent Black Americans' ethnocide and honor the cultural heritage of every melanated group, regardless of their geographic origin. By rejecting the idea that all melanated people outside of Africa are automatically African, we can avoid the erasure of unique cultural identities and prevent the colonization of other land masses. Furthermore, this approach challenges the forces seeking to Africanize Black Americans' culture, forcing them to identify primarily with Africa. We must recognize that Black Americans have their own distinct cultural heritage and are foundational to the development of the United States. As a Black American, it is imperative to focus on preventing the ethnocide and genocide of my own ethnicity. The U.S., Governments promoting Pan-Africanism to identify with Africa can be a Trojan horse for erasure or other agendas. In December of 2022, the United States government issued an executive order signed by the Biden administration called PACADE, which is determined to strengthen the dialogue between U.S. officials and the diaspora in the United States, as described in the U.S. Strategy toward Sub-Saharan Africa. During the forum, Vice President Kamala Harris announced the creation of the President's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement in the United States PACADE. President Biden issued an executive order directing the Secretary of State to establish PACADE, enhancing the dialogue between United States officials and the African diaspora. PACADE will consist of diverse representatives from Black American and African immigrant communities who have distinguished themselves in government, sports, creative industries, business, academia, social work, and faith-based activities to push Africa on Black Americans. The PACADE executive order can potentially perpetuate the power-knowledge dynamic that has historically marginalized Black Americans and erased their unique identity. While the order recognizes the contributions of African immigrants to American society, it lumps them together with Black Americans, who are descendants of slavery and have a distinct cultural heritage and historical experience. We are 500 years removed from Africa, with many Black Americans being traded in the Indian or Pacific slave trade, which means they are not from Africa. By grouping these two distinct groups under the umbrella term African, the PACADE executive order erases Black Americans' unique identity and struggles. This conflation can further perpetuate the power dynamic that has historically subjugated and oppressed Black Americans and can contribute to their continued marginalization. Furthermore, the PACADE executive order can potentially perpetuate the colonial mindset of the United States, as it aims to strengthen cultural, social, political, and economic ties between African communities and the United States. What is the importance of this new work? It is essential to consider how different ways of knowing can be used to challenge existing power relations. One way to do this is through the production of counter-hegemonic knowledge. This knowledge type is produced by marginalized groups within the dominant power structure. It challenges the values and assumptions of the dominant group and offers alternative ways of understanding the world. The relationship between epistemology and power knowledge is thus a complex one. Different forms of knowing can reinforce or challenge existing social inequalities. This book will also aim to understand how power knowledge contributes to constructing arguments about identity and lineage regarding the out-of-Africa theory. Why is this work needed? The delineation movement started in 2018. And its goal was to establish a new label for Black Americans for political and social purposes, to prevent ethnocide, and to curate Black American history under this new label. This work can challenge the status and federal classifications that are considered misnomers by Black Americans in 2023. For instance, since 2018, several factions within the Black American lineage have challenged the federal classification of the term African American. The splinter lineages within the Black American ethnicity are U.S. freedmen, American descendants of slavery, Negro, foundational Black American, Creole, Gullah Geech, American Aboriginal, and Black Indigenous. All of these splinters challenge the term African American because it does not specify the differences between a Black American who has been in the country before the Constitution and African immigrants who came to America after 1965, after the removal of the John Reed Immigration Act, which held quota for African immigrants. In Immigration and the Remaking of Black America, Douglas Hamilton points out that failing to account for this diversity among melanated people can result in incorrect assessments of Black American social progress and racism's persistence. He urges more studies on racial inequality in the future. Immigration and the Remaking of Black America have helped academics and policymakers to better comprehend the complexity of racial disparities in the 21st century by vividly describing the shifting character of Black America. This shifting of Black American identity engendered the delineation movement in 2018 and was the main reason for wanting a new federal classification besides African American. What are some questions to consider? What is the relationship between epistemology and power knowledge? How can different ways of knowing be used to challenge existing power relations? How does power knowledge play a role in the out-of-Africa theory? How does power knowledge contribute to constructing arguments about identity and lineage regarding the out-of-Africa theory and American federal classifications? Do colonization and systemic oppression influence the power knowledge epistemology of the out-of-Africa theory regarding brown indigenous people who were colonized outside of Africa and residing outside of Africa? If so, how? Is paleoanthropology and archaeology the best disciplines to study human origins? Can we construct knowledge about the past without power knowledge? What are the benefits of this new work? The benefits of this new work include 1. Helping to develop a theoretical framework beyond multi-regional and simple out-of-Africa models of human evolution, and 2. Suggesting that intervention efforts should focus on helping individuals to develop more sophisticated epistemic beliefs about the structure of knowledge. When it comes to out-of-Africa theory, there is a lot of epistemological violence done in the name of power and control. This theory exemplifies how power knowledge can be used to erase the unique identity of Black Americans. For instance, pupils who perceive science as merely a compilation of facts may be inclined to concentrate on individual occurrences. Conversely, those who view science as a multifaceted discipline involving interconnected notions and justifications may be more prone to draw on various resources in search for overarching concepts and patterns of connections, thereby attaining a more profound comprehension of the subject matter. An alternative explanation of this observation is that less advanced epistemological beliefs regarding the organization of knowledge, i.e., the idea that knowledge is simple and comprises separate chunks of factual data, may trigger a person's aim to commit information to memory, leading to the employment of shallow processing techniques such as mechanical repetition. Implications for theory. This book has several implications for theory. First, it challenges existing theories that suggest that power knowledge is only used to construct arguments about identity and lineage. Additionally, the results of this study suggest that different ways of knowing can be used to challenge existing power relations. Finally, the findings of this study have implications for epistemology, as they indicate that other forms of knowing can contribute to the construction of knowledge. This work has implications for how knowledge is taught in schools, suggesting that educators should teach epistemic beliefs alongside content knowledge. We need to be aware of how power knowledge operates. We need to be critical of the knowledge produced by those in positions of power and create alternative forms of knowledge that challenge existing power relations. Chapter 1. What is epistemology? How do you know what you know? Epistemology is a branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of knowledge and belief. It explores how knowledge is acquired, what makes beliefs justified or accurate, and how we can distinguish knowledge from mere opinion or speculation. At the heart of epistemology is the question of how do we know what we know? It explores the different ways we can acquire knowledge, such as perception, reasoning, testimony, or intuition. It seeks to answer fundamental questions such as what is knowledge, how do we acquire knowledge, and what are the limits of knowledge. It also examines the criteria by which we can assess the truth or reliability of our beliefs, and the extent to which our knowledge is provisional or subject to revision. Central to this inquiry is the idea that our beliefs and assumptions about the world always mediate knowledge. Our beliefs are shaped by our experiences, cultural and social background, and the knowledge claims accepted within our community or discipline. This means that our understanding of the world is always subject to interpretation and revision, and that different perspectives and beliefs may lead to varying forms of knowledge. Epistemology also explores power and authority's role in shaping our knowledge and beliefs. It recognizes that certain knowledge claims may be more readily accepted or disseminated based on the social status or background of the person making a claim, or the power structures within society that privilege specific perspectives or narratives. Therefore, epistemology is concerned with the nature of knowledge itself and the social and cultural factors that shape its construction and dissemination. It highlights the importance of diverse perspectives and voices in constructing knowledge and the need to critically examine dominant narratives and power structures that may contribute to the suppression or marginalization of particular viewpoints. Epistemological debates typically revolve around four main areas: the nature of knowledge and its criteria, the sources of knowledge and belief, the structure of knowledge and its coherence, and the challenge of philosophical skepticism. These debates aim to address the meaning of knowledge, how we attain justified beliefs, and the methods we use to validate our knowledge claims. In science, epistemology is critical because scientific knowledge is constantly being revised and updated. Scientists use empirical evidence to support their claims, and as new evidence emerges, theories and hypotheses are modified or discarded altogether. This process is known as falsification, an essential component of scientific inquiry. In addition to falsification, epistemology also recognizes the importance of skepticism and critical thinking. Skepticism is the practice of questioning the validity of claims and assumptions, and it encourages individuals to seek out evidence and evaluate it critically before accepting it as accurate. On the other hand, critical thinking involves analyzing and evaluating arguments and evidence to form logical and well-reasoned conclusions. Epistemology is also concerned with the relationship between knowledge and belief. Belief is a subjective state of mind, while knowledge is typically considered objective and verifiable. However, what we believe can influence how we interpret and evaluate evidence and shape the questions we ask and the methods we use to find answers. Decolonial epistemology refers to a branch of epistemology that focuses on decolonizing knowledge. It recognizes the destructive impact of colonization and systemic oppression, such as slavery, on the world's knowledge systems. In this context, the term epistemocide describes the deliberate destruction or suppression of knowledge systems that do not align with Western knowledge systems. Decolonial epistemology challenges the way knowledge is defined and constructed in academia. It advocates for recognizing and validating non-Western knowledge systems and including different voices and perspectives in knowledge production. It seeks to restore knowledge that has been erased or suppressed by colonialism and systemic oppression. Epistemology and power knowledge. Epistemology and power knowledge are deeply interconnected, as how knowledge is constructed, validated, and disseminated has significant implications for power relations within society. Power knowledge refers to how knowledge is used to maintain and reinforce social hierarchies and power structures. This can include suppressing specific knowledge or promoting particular narratives or interpretations of events that support the interests of those in power. Epistemology is critical in understanding power knowledge, as it helps us evaluate the validity and reliability of different knowledge claims. By examining the evidence and methodology behind various claims, we can understand how knowledge is constructed and used to support particular power structures and social hierarchies. For example, specific knowledge claims may be more readily accepted or disseminated within society based on the social status or background of the person making the claim. This can perpetuate false or harmful ideas and suppress knowledge that challenges existing power structures. The Out of Africa theory is an actual example of how epistemology and power knowledge intersect. As a dominant theory in paleoanthropology and archaeology, it has significant implications for our understanding of human origins and the historical development of different populations. However, it is crucial to recognize that Africans or Black Americans did not create the Out of Africa theory. Instead, it was developed by British paleoanthropologists and has been shaped by Western perspectives and assumptions about race and human development. This raises important questions about the validity and reliability of the theory and its potential impact on power relations within society. If the Out of Africa theory is based on flawed assumptions or biases, it may perpetuate harmful ideas and contribute to the marginalization or erasure of other perspectives and histories. Therefore, it is crucial to approach the Out of Africa theory and other knowledge claims with a critical and skeptical eye, mainly when they involve race, ethnicity, and power issues. By interrogating the evidence and methodology behind these claims, we can better understand how they have been constructed and how they may reflect or reinforce existing power structures. Furthermore, we must recognize the importance of diverse perspectives and voices in constructing and disseminating knowledge. This includes the views of Black Americans. It is time for Black Americans to reclaim our narratives and create our own theories about the origins of life that reflect our unique experiences, histories, and cultures. We must challenge the dominant narratives and knowledge claims imposed upon us by those in power, and center our own voices and perspectives in the construction and dissemination of knowledge. This requires a commitment to critical thinking, skepticism, and a willingness to question dominant narratives and seek out alternative perspectives and evidence. We must recognize that erasing our histories and cultures is a form of violence and oppression. By creating our own theories about the origins of life, we can honor and celebrate the diversity and complexity of melanated experiences and cultures. Together, we can build a new epistemology and power knowledge that reflects the diversity and richness of all dark-skinned people worldwide. Belief system and absorption of new knowledge. People's pre-existing convictions can significantly impact how they perceive and absorb new information. This is a result of the construction and meaningful learning processes, which tend to encourage individuals to interpret further information in a manner that aligns with what they already know about the world. People may not realize when their newly acquired knowledge contradicts their prior beliefs. This can happen because individuals often learn new information without giving up their prior beliefs, leading to conflicting ideas in long-term memory. This can occur due to a lack of connection between the latest information and what they already know and believe, or because the further information activates existing knowledge that is not relevant. As a result, people may continue to rely on their prior beliefs when interpreting new situations. Many people exhibit a confirmation bias, seeking information supporting their beliefs and dismissing or discrediting any conflicting evidence. Some erroneous beliefs may be integrated into a larger body of knowledge, making it difficult to change them without changing the entire theory or worldview. Misunderstandings of science are also common, such as not realizing that scientific findings are based on probabilities, and that scientists strive to stick to observable and measurable facts. People may have a personal or emotional attachment to their beliefs, leading them to defend their beliefs despite compelling evidence to the contrary. This attachment can stem from various sources, such as lifestyle, culture, religion, or a sense of self-esteem. On the other hand, people are more likely to change their beliefs when they encounter contradictory evidence and don't have a strong emotional connection to their current beliefs. This can lead to mental discomfort, also known as cognitive dissonance. Chapter 2. What is the out-of-Africa theory? In studying ancient human origins, the most widely accepted theory is that modern humans, Homo sapiens, originated from Africa and migrated to other parts of the world. This idea suggests that humans did not evolve separately in different regions, but instead had a single origin in Africa. However, it doesn't rule out the possibility of interbreeding between Homo sapiens and other archaic humans in Europe and Asia. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, people were trying to understand where modern humans came from, but they mostly thought about it regarding different races. This idea of races dominated the study of human variation, and people believed that the human species was made up of distinct types of people, or races, with different origins and evolutionary histories. These histories were seen as separate branches of a phylogenetic tree that did not mix. While there were different opinions on how many racial groups existed and when they shared a common ancestor, the general idea of the tree model of human variation prevailed, with some people believing in a few primary races such as Africans, Europeans, and Asians, and several secondary and tertiary races that could be represented as branches on an evolutionary tree. In the 19th century, Charles Darwin put forth the famous proposal that humans originated in Africa. He arrived at this conclusion by studying the presence of chimpanzees and gorillas in Africa and examining the comparative anatomy of modern humans and apes, revealing that they shared a common ancestor. Based on these findings, Darwin argued that the ancestors of modern humans emerged in Africa. The anatomist Thomas Huxley also supported the notion of a close evolutionary connection between African apes and humans. Nearly 5 decades after Darwin proposed his theory on the origin of humans, anthropologists discovered several fossils of small-brained ancient hominins in various parts of Africa, supporting his hypothesis. This led to the development of the hypothesis of recent African origin in the 20th century, which proposed that modern humans have a single origin and evolved in Africa. This theory is also known as monogenism and has been used in opposition to the concept of polygenism in various contexts. Who created the out-of-Africa theory? In the 1970s, a new theory about human origins called out-of-Africa emerged. This theory suggested that modern humans originated in Africa because the oldest fossils of humans that looked like us were found there. Ginter Brouwer later provided more evidence to support this argument by claiming that Europeans must have descended from Africans. However, neither Protchen or Brouwer claimed that early modern humans in Africa meant that they had unique African origins. Christopher Brian Stringer, a British anthropologist, has been instrumental in advancing the out-of-Africa theory or the recent African origin hypothesis in paleoanthropology. His research in the 1970s suggested that modern humans originated in Africa and eventually migrated to the non-African world, replacing archaic humans such as Homo floresiensis and Neanderthals. Stringer's work was grounded in discovering small-brained hominid fossils in different areas of Africa, which supported the notion of recent African origin. His research proposed a single origin, monogenism, of modern humans and suggested that the modern human population replaced the archaic human population through migration within and out of Africa over the past 50,000 to 100,000 years. However, he acknowledged that interbreeding between different human groups could have occurred. Stringer has received numerous awards and honors for his contributions to the field of anthropology, including the Frank Medal of the Zoological Society of London in 2008 and the Rivers Memorial Medal from the Royal Anthropological Institute in 2004. He is a Fellow of the Royal Society and an Honorary Fellow of the Society of Antiquaries. In 2023, he was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire for advancing the understanding of human evolution. In recent years, Stringer has introduced a more nuanced version of this hypothesis called multi-regional African origin. He has also directed several projects related to human occupation in Britain during the Pleistocene period. In an interview on Rethinking Out of Africa on Edge.org, Cresta for stringer states for baiting. At the moment, I'm looking again at the whole question of a recent African origin for modern human, the leading idea over the last 20 years. This argues that we had a recent African origin, that we came out of Africa, and that we replaced all of the other human forms that were outside of Africa. But we're having to reevaluate that now, because genetic data suggests that the modern humans who came out of Africa about 60,000 years ago probably interbred with Neanderthals, first of all, and then some of them later on interbred with another group of people called the Denisovans, over in southeastern Asia. If this is so, then we are not purely of recent African origin. We're having to reevaluate the out of Africa theory, and we're having to reevaluate the species concepts we apply, because in one view of thinking, species should be self-contained units. They don't interbreed with other species. However, for me, the whole idea of Neanderthals as a different species is really a recognition of their separate evolutionary history, the fact that we can show that they evolved through time in a particular direction, distinct from modern humans, and they separated maybe 400,000 years ago from our lineage. And morphologically, we can distinguish a relatively complete Neanderthal fossil from any recent human. Thus, the Denisovans are only known from this one site, genetically. The fossils are too incomplete to tell us what these people were really like, except they've got big teeth. However, there are lots of ancient fossils from China, and one from India. We've known about the people in China for a long time, ones who didn't look Neanderthal, and didn't look modern human either. Fossils like from the ones from Dali, Geniushin, Mabo might well be Denisovans, but unfortunately we don't have DNA from them at the moment, and we have to hope that the DNA work will move on, and eventually we can unite the Denisovan DNA with more complete fossils, and say physically what these people looked like. 20 years ago, I would have argued that our species evolved in one place, maybe in East Africa or South Africa. There was a period of time in just one place where a small population of humans became modern, physically and behaviorally. Isolated and perhaps stressed by climate change, this drove a rapid and punctuational origin for our species. Now I don't think it was that simple, either within or outside of Africa. So for me, the exact processes involved in our African origin are still unclear. We don't know exactly when it happened. We don't know exactly where it happened. There have been some remarkable advances in the time that I've been researching human evolution, which is 40-odd years now. When I began my PhD in 1970 and went on my doctoral research trip in 1971, the technology was very primitive. Basically, I went around Europe with a suitcase full of measuring instruments, calipers, tapes, protractors. I applied these to the fossil skulls of Neanderthals and modern humans that I was studying, spending 4 months doing that. It took half a day to study a single skull and collect that data, all put down by hand onto a paper sheet that couldn't be backed up. There were not even any photocopy machines around, so I could have lost all of my data quite easily. There were no pocket calculators. There were no photocopy machines. It was entirely non-digital recording. Molecular component of the OOA theory. Alan Wilson and Rebecca Cann were molecular biologists who conducted research in the early 1990s using mitochondrial DNA to investigate humans' evolutionary history. They studied mtDNA because it has a unique inheritance pattern that is only passed down from the mother to her offspring. This makes it a powerful tool for studying maternal lineages over time. Wilson and Cann's research showed that all living humans have a common female ancestor, dubbed mitochondrial Eve, who lived in Africa between 100,000 and 200,000 years ago. This discovery supported the out of Africa theory, which posits that modern humans originated in Africa and then migrated to colonize the rest of the world. The researchers arrived at this conclusion by analyzing mtDNA sequences from individuals from different populations worldwide. They found that there was much more genetic variation in African populations than in non-African populations, which suggested that humans had been evolving in Africa for much longer than in other parts of the world. Moreover, they discovered that the mtDNA sequences of non-African populations were all derived from African populations, indicating that humans had originated in Africa and then migrated out to colonize other regions. Finally, they found that the genetic diversity of non-African populations was much lower than that of African populations, suggesting that these populations had undergone a genetic bottleneck, a period of significantly reduced population size, during their migration out of Africa. The out of Africa theory suggests that modern humans evolved in Africa and migrated to other parts of the world. This theory is based on genetic evidence, but many possible explanations exist for the patterns seen in this evidence. One factor that affects genetic patterns is the size of the population that is being studied. For example, Some types of genes have a smaller adequate population size, meaning their genetic patterns are more likely to be affected by random events like genetic drift or natural selection. Another factor is the way that genes are inherited. Some genes, like those on the mitochondrial chromosome, are inherited differently than others, which can affect their genetic patterns. These factors mean that there are many possible explanations for the genetic patterns seen in modern humans, and the out of Africa theory is just one of them. What is mitochondrial DNA? Mitochondrial DNA is passed down from a mother to her offspring. Therefore, the genetic information contained within the mtDNA can be used to trace maternal lineages and infer migration patterns. Scientists can identify differences in the DNA sequences when comparing the mtDNA of individuals from different populations. These differences are called genetic variations or mutations. Over time, new mutations arise in the mtDNA of diverse populations due to random genetic changes or selective pressures. By analyzing the distribution of these mutations in different populations, scientists can determine how closely related different populations are and how they are related in evolutionary history. If two populations share many mtDNA mutations, it suggests that they share a common maternal ancestor. Conversely, if two populations have very different mtDNA sequences, it indicates that they diverged from a common ancestor a long time ago. Additionally, mtDNA analysis only traces maternal lineages and does not provide information about paternal lineages or genetic exchange between populations. What is the field of paleoanthropology? Paleoanthropology is the scientific study of human evolution and prehistoric humans, including their physical and cultural characteristics, behaviors, and social relationships. Paleoanthropologists use a combination of methods and tools to study early humans, including the analysis of skeletal remains, fossils, and archaeological artifacts. One of the primary methods used to study early humans is excavating sites where ancient human remains have been found. During excavation, paleoanthropologists carefully recover the remains and associated artifacts while preserving their context in the surrounding sediment layers. They document the spatial relationships between the bones and artifacts, which can provide essential clues about how the individuals lived and died. Another important method used by paleoanthropologists is the analysis of skeletal remains. By examining the bones of early humans, scientists can learn about their physical characteristics, including their height, weight, and facial features. They can also identify patterns of bone growth and development, which can provide information about how these individuals lived and what they ate. Paleoanthropologists also use various dating methods to determine the age of human fossils and archaeological artifacts. One method is relative dating, which involves comparing the age of a fossil or artifact to other nearby materials of known age. For example, if a fossil is found in sediment layers above or below a volcanic ash layer of known age, it can be dated relatively. Another method used to determine the age of human fossils is absolute dating, which relies on the decay of radioactive isotopes in rocks and minerals. For example, radiocarbon dating can determine the age of organic materials up to about 50,000 years old. In contrast, potassium-argon dating can be used to date volcanic rocks that are 1 million years old. In recent years, paleoanthropologists have also started using genetic and molecular biology methods to study ancient DNA from human fossils. This can provide information about the relationships between different populations of early humans, as well as insights into their genetic traits and adaptations. Through the careful analysis of fossils, artifacts, and other materials, paleoanthropologists continue to make discoveries and gain a deeper understanding of our origins and history as a species. Early human archaeological sites. Archaeological sites associated with early humans have contributed significantly to understanding evolutionary processes. The Cima de los Huesos site in Spain, dated back to 430,000 years ago, was particularly influential in shaping current views. The site provided evidence that a large community of hominins exhibited a more comprehensive range of skeletal morphology than previously assumed for one species, leading to a reassessment of the concept of species itself. As a result, paleontologists could identify Homo sapiens h's with less rigid expectations. A few archaeological sites in Africa are associated with early Homo sapiens remains. The Jebel Ir site in Morocco is the oldest known site, with Homo sapiens remaining 350,000 through 280,000 years old. 5 hominids were found with Middle Stone Age tools, representing the best dated evidence of an early pre-modern phase in Homo sapiens evolution. The Omo Kibish site in Ethiopia contained the partial skeleton of a Homo sapien who died around 195,000 years ago, along with stone tools. The Acheulean transition tools are stone tools that mark an important milestone in human history. The Bori site in Ethiopia, dated between 2.5 million and 160,000 years ago, contained hominid crania, identified as Homo sapiens, along with Acheulean transition tools. The Acheulean technology emerged around 1.76 million years ago and was characterized by the production of extensive bifacial tools that required significant skill and planning to create. These tools were often used for cutting and scraping animal hides, but could also be used for hunting and other tasks. The Acheulean transition tools significantly improved over the earlier Odon tools, which were simpler and less specialized. The Acheulean tools allowed more efficient animal hide processing, facilitating more sophisticated hunting and butchering techniques. The Herto lower member of Bori, dated 260,000 years ago, contains later Acheulean artifacts, including bifaces and level wall flakes. Bifaces are large, flat, thin stone tools flaked on both sides. They were typically used for cutting, scraping, and chopping, and were commonly made from flint or chert. Bifaces were essential tools for early humans because they were versatile and could be used for various tasks. They were also relatively easy to make and could be resharpened and reused. Level wall flakes, on the other hand, are smaller and more specialized stone tools. They were typically made by preparing a core of flint or other material and then carefully striking off small, thin flakes from the core. Although no hominid remains were found within the lower member, it may be reevaluated in light of the results at Jebel Irhoud. One of the most fascinating inquiries surrounding the migration of modern humans from Africa is the precise geographical path taken. It is widely accepted that if a single dispersal occurred, there were two potential routes available at that time, namely a northern route by Egypt and Sinai, and a southern route by Ethiopia, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Arabian Peninsula. Despite extensive investigations utilizing both archaeological and genetic methods, neither has been able to provide conclusive evidence to determine which route was taken by early humans. Christopher Bay, a notable paleoanthropologist, and his team have proposed 4 variations of the out of Africa theory. These variations encompass features from all 3 of the original hypotheses. They include a single dispersal during the marine isotope stage 5, which is 130,000 through 74,000 years ago, multiple dispersals beginning from marine isotope stage 5, a single dispersal during the marine isotope stage 3, which is 60,000 through 24,000 years ago, and multiple dispersals starting from marine isotope stage 3. Methods used for this theory. Radiocarbon dating is a method used to determine the age of organic materials. It is based on the fact that carbon-14, a radioactive isotope of carbon, is present in all living organisms. Carbon-14 is produced in the atmosphere by cosmic rays and is incorporated into the carbon dioxide that plants use during photosynthesis. Animals that eat these plants, in turn, absorb carbon-14. Once an organism dies, it stops taking in carbon-14, and the carbon-14 it contains begins to decay at a known rate. Scientists can determine the sample's age by measuring the amount of carbon-14 remaining in a sample and comparing it to the initial amount of carbon-14. Radiocarbon dating is limited to materials that are less than 50, 0 to 58,000 years old, because the amount of carbon-14 in a sample decreases to a point where it is no longer measurable beyond that time frame. However, this method helps determine the age of organic materials found at early human archaeological sites. By dating the organic materials associated with human remains or artifacts, scientists can better understand the timeline of human evolution and migration. Potassium-argon dating is a radiometric dating method used to date volcanic rocks that are millions of years old. This method is based on the fact that some minerals in volcanic rocks contain radioactive isotopes of potassium, such as potassium-40, which decays into argon-40 at a known rate. By measuring the ratio of potassium-40 to argon-40 in volcanic rock, scientists can calculate the age of the stone. Potassium-argon dating has been used extensively in studying human evolution and the out of Africa theory. For example, volcanic ash layers at Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania were dated using potassium-argon dating, which provided important information on the age of the stone tools found at the site. My opposing argument to the methodology itself. While radiocarbon dating and potassium-argon dating are valuable tools in determining the age of archaeological and geological samples, they have limitations that can impact their ability to prove how humans evolved in Africa and whether there was a migration pattern out of Africa. Radiocarbon dating, for example, is limited to dating organic materials up to about 58,000 years old. Beyond this time frame, the amount of remaining carbon-14 in the sample is too small to measure accurately, making it difficult to establish an accurate age for the sample. Additionally, radiocarbon dating is not always accurate due to the variability of carbon-14 production in the atmosphere over time, which can result in significant discrepancies in dating. On the other hand, potassium-argon dating can be used to date volcanic rocks that are millions of years old. However, it is not useful for dating organic materials or sedimentary rocks. Furthermore, it relies on the assumption that there has been no alteration or contamination of the sample since its initial formation, which can be difficult to confirm. While radiocarbon and potassium-argon dating can provide valuable information about the age of samples, they do not directly prove how humans evolved in Africa or whether there was a migration pattern out of Africa. Additionally, even with multiple lines of evidence, there may still be gaps and uncertainties in our understanding of these processes, as the fossil record is incomplete, and many of the processes that led to human evolution and migration occurred over vast periods. If radiocarbon dating can only go back 58,000 due to carbon depletion 14, who is to say that melanated humans did not exist earlier than the remains currently found? The oldest was found in Africa, but there could be humans older in Africa or elsewhere in the world. We simply do not have the technology to determine this. If potassium-argon dating is a radiometric dating method used to date volcanic rocks that are up to 1 million years old, and one found stone tools in Tanzania, that proves that melanated people existed on that land mass. But how does this prove this is where human life began? It's a leap in logic to say, because one found the oldest stone tool in Africa, that is, the human origins of life. There could be tools elsewhere in the world, or in Africa itself, that could be older than what potassium-argon dating can measure. Planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old. How can one determine the proper dates and origins of human existence when we do not have the technology to know? Migration pattern analysis. Determining the migration patterns of the out-of-Africa theory involves analyzing the genetic and physical characteristics of modern human populations and their ancient ancestors. One approach to tracing human migrations is through genetic analysis, specifically by comparing the genetic material of different populations. By studying variations in the genetic code of populations worldwide, scientists can track the migration of human groups and their subsequent genetic diversification. One common method of genetic analysis used for migration studies is mitochondrial DNA (mtDNA) analysis. This approach examines the genetic material contained in the mitochondria, which is inherited only from the mother. By comparing the mtDNA of different populations, scientists can trace the maternal lineages of humans and track their migration patterns. Another genetic analysis method used for migration studies is Y chromosome analysis. This approach examines the genetic material in the Y chromosome, inherited only from the father. By comparing the Y chromosomes of different populations, scientists can trace the paternal lineages of humans and track their migration patterns. In addition to genetic analysis, scientists also use physical anthropology to study human migration. Physical anthropology involves studying the physical characteristics of human remains, such as bone structure, to determine ancestry and migration patterns. For example, comparing the skull morphology of human remains found in different parts of the world can help trace the migration of human populations. Archaeological evidence, such as the presence of specific tools or artifacts, can also help scientists determine migration patterns. For example, the spread of certain tools or pottery styles can indicate the movement of human populations across different regions. Determining migration patterns for the out-of-Africa theory involves a multidisciplinary approach combining genetic analysis, physical anthropology, and archaeological evidence. By studying the genetic and physical characteristics of modern human populations and their ancient ancestors, scientists can trace the movements of human groups and ultimately develop a better understanding of how and when humans evolved and migrated across the world. My opposing argument to the idea of migration pattern: it is essential to recognize that determining migration patterns for the out-of-Africa theory using genetic evidence is not without limitations. One of the main limitations is that DNA evidence can only provide a snapshot of a population's genetic makeup at a given point in time and cannot capture the full complexity of historical events that may have occurred. Additionally, genetic evidence is subject to biases due to various factors such as sample size, selection bias, and the genetic marker's reliability. This can lead to misinterpretation of genetic data and potentially incorrect conclusions about migration patterns. Furthermore, the interpretation of genetic data for population history relies heavily on assumptions about the mutation rates and the generation time of mitochondrial DNA. These assumptions are based on models that may not accurately reflect the biological reality, leading to inaccuracies in determining the timing and direction of migrations. One major limitation is that molecular biology relies on the assumption of a molecular clock based on the idea that genetic mutations accumulate constantly over time. However, recent studies have suggested that the molecular clock may not be as consistent as previously thought. making it more difficult to date divergence times and migration patterns accurately. Additionally, mitochondrial DNA only traces maternal lineages, which can limit understanding of the full scope of human migration patterns. It does not provide information about the male side of the family and does not account for migration patterns that occurred before the divergence of mitochondrial lineages. Another challenge is the fact that migrations are complex and often involve multiple waves of human movement, making it difficult to disentangle the different events that contributed to the current genetic landscape. The idea that modern humans originated from Africa and then migrated to other parts of the world is being challenged by recent genetic research. While some nuclear loci like autosomal loci and loci on the non-recombining Y support this theory, many new discoveries show that genetic variation did not decrease during the speculated bottleneck event associated with recent speciation. A bottleneck event associated with recent speciation refers to a scenario in which a population dramatically reduces size, leading to a significant loss of genetic diversity. A bottleneck event can occur during the formation of a new species when a small subset of individuals separates from a larger population and founds a new group. The resulting bottleneck effect can result in the fixation of certain alleles versions of genes and the loss of others, ultimately affecting the genetic diversity of the new population. In the out-of-Africa theory context, this bottleneck event is thought to have occurred around 60,000 years ago, when a small group of anatomically modern humans left Africa and migrated to other parts of the world. Genealogical roots outside of Africa suggest gene flow between different regions of archaic humans, implying that they were not separate species. Thus, the theory of a single origin model for modern humans is not entirely accurate, and it is more likely that modern humans have contributions from multiple archaic populations. Archaeological evidence has suggested that the development of modern human traits, such as complex tool-making and symbolic behavior, may have occurred outside of Africa before the emergence of modern humans. This suggests that the development of modern human traits may have been a gradual process that occurred in multiple regions, rather than a sudden and dramatic shift as proposed by the out-of-Africa theory. Melanated people will have similarities because the conditions for life can be found throughout the whole planet, not just in Africa. Also, just because melanated people share many mtDNA mutations and share a common ancestor does not mean that this has to be tied to a land mass. It just means dark melanated people are the Earth's original people by the nature of what necessitates life on planet Earth. Debating the limitations of the out-of-Africa theory has been a topic of discussion among scholars in the field of human evolution for several decades. While the theory has provided a useful framework for understanding the origins of modern humans, it is not without its limitations and criticisms. One major limitation of the out-of-Africa theory is that it presents a simplified narrative of human evolution that ignores the complexity and diversity of human populations throughout history. The theory suggests that modern humans originated in Africa and spread throughout the world, mainly replacing earlier hominid populations. However, this model does not account for the possibility of interbreeding and gene flow between different hominid populations, such as Neanderthals and Denisovans, who coexisted with modern humans in different regions of the world. Another criticism of the out-of-Africa theory is that it relies heavily on genetic evidence, which may not provide a complete picture of human evolution and migration patterns. For example, genetic studies are limited by the availability of DNA samples, which are more difficult to obtain for ancient human populations. Additionally, genetic studies may not be able to fully capture the complexity of human migration patterns and cultural factors that may have influenced human evolution and migration. The out-of-Africa theory also tends to oversimplify the role of environmental and cultural factors in human evolution. The theory suggests that the migration of early humans out of Africa was primarily driven by changes in climate and the availability of resources, without considering the potential influence of cultural factors, such as language and tool use. Moreover, the out-of-Africa theory has been criticized for its cultural and political implications. The theory reinforces a Eurocentric view of human evolution that downplays the contributions of non-European populations to the development of modern humans. The theory also promotes a simplistic narrative of human history that may overlook the unique cultural and historical contributions of different regions and populations. While paleontology has been an essential tool for understanding the evolution of life on Earth, it is not sufficient for studying the origins of human beings. Finally, there is the issue of epistemology. How do we know what we know? The methods used to study human evolution and migration are based on scientific principles and hypotheses, but are still subject to bias and interpretation. The evidence that supports the out-of-Africa theory is based on incomplete fossil records, and genetic data can only provide a limited picture of human history. Therefore, It is essential to approach these theories critically and recognize that they are subject to change as new evidence emerges. Who funded the Out of Africa theory research? Research on the Out of Africa theory has been funded by various organizations, including academic institutions, governments, and private foundations. For example, the Max Planck Society, the National Science Foundation, the European Research Council, and the Leakey Foundation have all provided funding for research related to human evolution and the Out of Africa theory. Chapter 3: How Melanated People Should Question the Power Knowledge in the Out of Africa Theory. What is power knowledge? In sociology, power knowledge is a term introduced by philosopher Michel Foucault. The power knowledge theory explores how power is intertwined with the construction and dissemination of knowledge. At its core, this theory argues that knowledge is not simply an objective or neutral representation of reality. Still, it is instead shaped by the social and historical context in which it is produced and disseminated. Knowledge is always bound up with power, mutually reinforcing the two. Power operates through overt coercion or force, and more subtle mechanisms such as discourse, language, and knowledge production. In other words, power is exercised through how we come to know and understand the world around us. Foucault's theory highlights how power operates not only at the individual level but also at the level of institutions, social norms, and cultural practices. Institutions such as the media, the education system, and government agencies play a critical role in shaping our knowledge and beliefs and reinforcing particular power structures and social hierarchies. Power can be used to create new knowledge, to challenge existing power structures, and to promote social change. One of the critical implications of Foucault's power knowledge theory is the need for critical reflection and examination of how knowledge is constructed and disseminated. This involves questioning dominant narratives and power structures and seeking alternative perspectives and voices. Epistemology and power knowledge. One way to think about the relationship between epistemology and power knowledge is to consider how different ways of knowing contribute to the production and reproduction of social inequality. For example, if we think about knowledge as something that is produced by experts and then disseminated to the general public, it is easy to see how this process can reinforce existing social inequalities for melanated people because we do not own the academic institutions that produce knowledge. Experts tend to come from privileged backgrounds, and their expertise tends to reflect the values and interests of those groups. When they produce knowledge, they do so from a position of power, and this knowledge is then used to legitimate and reproduce narratives about people who do not have power. The concepts of general politics and regimes of truth are a product of scientific discourse and institutions, which are constantly reinforced and redefined through the education system, media, and political and economic ideologies. Therefore, the struggle for truth is not simply a quest for some objective and undisputed truth, but rather a fight over the rules that govern the separation of truth and falsehood, and the specific effects of power that are associated with the truth. This is a battle over the status of truth and its critical economic and political roles, as explained by Foucault in Rabineau 1991, in the context of the Out of Africa theory. This means that the narrative of human origins and migration that has been constructed is not just a neutral, scientific explanation of historical events, but is instead influenced by a range of social, political, and cultural factors. Africans, Black Americans, or other melanated people did not create the Out of Africa theory. British and European scholars created it from a position of power. One potential consequence of power knowledge is that the Out of Africa theory could erase the unique identities and histories of melanated people who are not from Africa but have lived on other land masses for hundreds or thousands of years. By placing such a strong emphasis on African origins and migration, the theory could implicitly suggest that these individuals do not have a legitimate claim to their own cultural heritage, identity, and land. It is essential to recognize that the Out of Africa theory is just one perspective on human origins and migration. Some alternative narratives and interpretations may be more inclusive and empowering for melanated people on other continents. By acknowledging the complex and multifaceted nature of human history and identity, we can work to create more equitable societies that value diversity and celebrate the contributions of all cultures and communities. By reclassifying dark-skinned people outside of Africa as African, colonizers can justify stealing land by claiming that these individuals do not have a legitimate claim to their land because they are from Africa. This is a danger of the power knowledge in the Out of Africa theory. The power dynamics at play in constructing and disseminating knowledge can significantly impact social hierarchies and identity. By recognizing these dynamics, we can work towards creating our own theories on the human origins of life. In the context of melanated people, there has historically been a systematic effort to control and shape the knowledge that is disseminated about them. This has often involved a deliberate erasure or distortion of Black American history and culture, and the promotion of harmful stereotypes and narratives that reinforce existing power structures. For example, during the era of colonialism and slavery, Western societies actively sought to justify the exploitation and oppression of Black people through a range of pseudoscientific theories and racial ideologies. These ideologies were used to justify everything from the transatlantic slave trade to denying fundamental human rights to Black Americans in the United States. Power knowledge theory can help us understand how knowledge dissemination reinforces existing power dynamics of education. What's the power dynamic in the Out of Africa theory reclassification? The power dynamics at play in constructing and disseminating knowledge have been used to colonize the land where dark-skinned people live. For instance, in Australia, the Aboriginal people who have been there for over 72,000 years have been reclassified as Black and told they migrated from Africa, erasing their unique identity as Indigenous Australians. Similarly, the Jawar people of India, who have been there for over 60,000 years, are being told they are from Africa, which is a form of reclassification that undermines their connection to their land and their cultural heritage. In Fiji, dark-skinned people who have been there for over 3,500 years and came from Melanesia are also being reclassified, as are the Melanesians who have been on their land for over 50,000 to 100,000 years and are told they come from Africa. This erases their unique identities and connection to their land, making it easier for outsiders to exert control and influence over them. In the Caribbean and the Americas, dark-skinned people are also being reclassified, and their land is stolen. They are told they are from Africa, undermining their connection to their land and cultural heritage. This reclassification is a tool of colonization and oppression that enables colonizers to justify their actions and take control of other people's land. In real time, Black Americans are being forced by the United States government to identify with Africa through the dissemination of power knowledge, including the Out of Africa theory and Pan-Africanism. This form of power knowledge erases the unique identities of Black Americans who are 15-8 generations removed from Africa, with many being indigenous due to the Indian slave trade. We have the right to self-identify. In summary, the power dynamics at play in constructing and disseminating knowledge can be used to colonize land and control people's identities. By reclassifying dark-skinned people as African, colonizers can justify taking over their land and exerting control over their resources. There is no doubt that melanated humans inhabited the planet first, but I emphatically state that we must produce and construct knowledge about our origin stories. Melanated people are not obligated to follow Europeans' theory of human origins. We should not let people who have historically oppressed us tell us about our origins. They do not know more about us than we do regarding how we got on this planet and evolved. Chapter 4. Other theories on the origin of humans and life besides Out of Africa theory. This chapter covers theories on both the origin of humans and life besides the Out of Africa theory. It is important to note that the origins of humans and the origins of life are two different topics. Elucidating on both will help the buildup of my own theory. Multi-regional theory. The multi-regional theory of human evolution posits that the different populations of Homo erectus that existed throughout the world evolved into modern humans independently of one another in the process of parallel evolution, rather than originating from a single population in Africa. The theory was first proposed in the early 20th century by the German anatomist Franz Weidenreich, who suggested that the Chinese Homo erectus population had given rise to modern humans in East Asia. Weidenreich argued that the modern human traits seen in Chinese populations, such as a more vertical forehead and a more gracile facial structure, resulted from gradual evolutionary changes from earlier populations of Homo erectus in the region. In the 1980s, the multi-regional theory gained renewed attention as a challenge to the Out of Africa theory, which had become the dominant paradigm in human evolution at the time. Supporters of the multi-regional theory argued that genetic and archaeological evidence indicated that early humans in different regions of the world had interbred and exchanged genes, supporting the idea that modern humans had evolved independently in multiple regions. Proponents of the multi-regional theory also argued that the fossil record showed gradual changes in human morphology over time rather than a sudden and dramatic shift from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, as the Out of Africa theory proposed. The multi-regional theory continues to have some supporters who argued that the genetic evidence is inconclusive and that the fossil record supports the idea of parallel evolution in different regions of the world. The candelabra hypothesis, The candelabra hypothesis is an alternative model to the out-of-Africa theory that proposes a more complex pattern of human evolution. This hypothesis suggests that modern humans evolved independently in different regions of the world, with some populations interbreeding and others remaining isolated. The name candelabra refers to the branching nature of this model, which suggests that the evolution of modern humans resembles the branching of a candelabra. Some proponents of the candelabra hypothesis suggest that early hominids may have migrated out of Africa much earlier than previously thought, and that modern humans may have evolved independently in multiple regions of the world. The candelabra hypothesis also suggests that interbreeding different human populations has been common throughout history, leading to the mixing of genetic material and the development of unique regional characteristics. This hypothesis also means that the evolution of modern humans was a much more complex process than previously thought, and that the diversity of human populations results from a long and complicated history. Despite some support for the candelabra hypothesis, it remains controversial and is not widely accepted by the scientific community. However, the candelabra hypothesis has helped spark essential debates and discussions about the complex nature of human evolution and how modern human populations are shaped by their evolutionary history. Polygenism. Polygenism is a scientific theory that suggests that humans originated from multiple, separate origins or centers of creation rather than a single origin. Polygenism arose as an alternative to the idea of monogenism, which posits that all humans share a single origin. Polygenism was based on several observations, including the physical differences between human populations, the existence of distinct cultural and linguistic groups, and the fact that humans are found in diverse regions of the world. The polygenist theory was influential in the 19th century and was used to justify European imperialism and the subjugation of other races. While not scientific, indigenous creation stories often include polygenesis as a critical element. For instance, many African oral traditions recount the creation of different races of humans separately using different materials. For example, the Bambuti mythology from Congo explains that the supreme god, Convao, created 3 races of humans using different types of clay, including black, white, and red clay. Such stories often serve an ideological function by explaining the existence of other groups who are not part of the tribe or ethnic group that the creation myth pertains to. Polygenism in creation narratives also reinforces tribal or ethnic unity and emphasizes the unique relationship between the tribe and its deities. 3 conditions necessary for life. Current evidence suggests that the most primitive forms of life preserved in rock records were similar in complexity to modern bacteria. However, there must have been some transitional entities between simple inorganic molecules and bacterial cells. Researchers are trying to discover this transitional process in the field of the origin of life. Defining the characteristics of a living cell is essential to simulate this process experimentally. It is also crucial in the search for extraterrestrial life, as it defines what life is and what biosignatures to look for. Defining life has been challenging, but it is widely agreed that all extant life forms share 3 fundamental features. Firstly, a lipid bilayer membrane is essential to define cell boundaries and perform various functions. Secondly, a DNA-RNA-based system transmits genetic information and enables evolution through natural selection. Thirdly, all cells require metabolism to synthesize and break down complex molecules, providing the necessary molecules and energy for cell survival and reproduction. Molecular building blocks of life, such as phospholipids, DNA, RNA, proteins, and adenosine phosphates, are related to these 3 characteristic features. Chance, necessity, and the origins of life. A Physical Sciences Perspective by Robert Hazen. The article Chance, Necessity, and the Origins of Life. A Physical Sciences Perspective by Robert M. Hazen examines the role of both chance and necessity in the emergence of life on Earth. Hazen argues that the origins of life were the result of a combination of chance events and the laws of nature. Hazen begins by outlining the challenges of studying the origins of life, including the lack of direct evidence and the complex nature of the subject matter. He notes that scientists must use a combination of physical sciences and life sciences to make progress in this field. The author then introduces the concept of self-organization, which he defines as the spontaneous formation of patterns or structures in a system. Hazen argues that self-organization played a crucial role in the emergence of life, as it allowed for the formation of complex structures and processes from simpler components. Hazen also explores the role of chance in the origins of life. He notes that many important events in the history of life on Earth, such as the formation of the moon and the evolution of photosynthesis, resulted from chance events. However, He argues that chance alone cannot explain the emergence of life, as it requires a combination of chance and necessity. The author then discusses the role of necessity in the origins of life, focusing on the laws of chemistry and physics. Hazen notes that the laws of nature allowed for the formation of complex organic molecules, such as amino acids and nucleotides, that are the building blocks of life. He also explores the role of energy flow in the emergence of life, arguing that converting energy into usable forms is crucial in developing self-organizing systems. Hazen concludes by emphasizing the importance of taking a holistic approach to studying the origins of life, one that integrates both chance and necessity. He argues that this approach will allow scientists to understand better the complex processes that led to the emergence of life on Earth. Origins of Life. Transition from Geochemistry to Biogeochemistry. The article The Transition from Geochemistry to Biogeochemistry discusses the evolution of the study of the origins of life from a focus on geochemistry to biogeochemistry. The authors argue that a shift in perspective is necessary to understand the emergence of life on Earth better. The authors define geochemistry as the study of chemical reactions and processes in the Earth's crust and mantle. They note that this field has traditionally focused on abiotic processes and the interactions between inorganic materials. However, they argue that this approach is insufficient to fully understand the origins of life, as it fails to consider the role of biological processes in shaping the Earth's environment. The authors then introduce the concept of biogeochemistry, which they define as the study of the interactions between biological, geological, and chemical processes on Earth. They argue that this interdisciplinary approach is necessary to understand better how life emerged on Earth and how it has shaped the planet's environment over time. The authors highlight several key aspects of biogeochemistry that are relevant to the study of the origins of life. One is the idea of the primordial soup, which refers to the theory that life may have emerged from a mixture of organic molecules in the early Earth's oceans. The authors note that biogeochemical processes would have played a vital role in the formation and evolution of this soup, and that understanding these processes is critical to understanding the origins of life. The authors also discuss the role of biogeochemistry in developing the Earth's atmosphere. They note that early life forms, such as cyanobacteria, played a crucial role in the evolution of the atmosphere by producing oxygen through photosynthesis. This oxygenation of the atmosphere created new conditions that allowed for the evolution of more complex life forms. Finally, the authors argue that biogeochemistry is critical to understanding the future of life on Earth. They note that human activity is now a significant driver of biogeochemical processes, and that understanding these processes is necessary to mitigate the negative impacts of human activity on the planet's environment. Mineral Surfaces, Geochemical Complexities, and the Origins of Life by Robert Hazen and Dimitri. The authors argue that mineral surfaces played a crucial role in the emergence of life on Earth by providing a platform for chemical reactions that led to the formation of complex organic molecules. Hazen and Svrjinsky begin by discussing the challenges of studying the origins of life, including the lack of direct evidence and the complexity of the subject matter. They argue that mineral surfaces offer a promising avenue for research, as they provide a physical and chemical environment for prebiotic chemistry. The authors then examine the properties of mineral surfaces that make them suitable for prebiotic chemistry. They note that mineral surfaces have a large surface area and various chemical functional groups, allowing a wide range of chemical reactions. They also discuss the role of electrostatic interactions in prebiotic chemistry, noting that mineral surfaces can act as catalysts for these interactions. Hazen and Svrjinsky then explore the concept of geochemical complexity, which refers to the diversity of chemical and physical conditions on Earth that have led to the formation of various minerals. They argue that this complexity is critical to understanding the origins of life, as it provides a wide range of chemical environments for prebiotic chemistry. The authors then discuss the formation of organic molecules on mineral surfaces. They note that a wide range of organic molecules, including amino acids, nucleotides, and lipids, have been shown to form on mineral surfaces under various conditions. They also examine the role of minerals in the formation of RNA, which is believed to have played a vital role in the emergence of life. Finally, Hazen and Svrjinsky discuss the implications of their research for the search for life on other planets. They argue that mineral surfaces may be a common platform for prebiotic chemistry throughout the universe, and that studying the geochemical complexity of other planets may provide insights into the conditions necessary for the emergence of life. Eoarchean period life formation. The earliest known evidence of life on Earth dates back more than 3.5 billion years ago, during the Eoarchean period, when the crust had solidified following the molten Hadean era. Microfossils discovered in the Neuve Rajadut greenstone belt in northern Quebec within banded iron formation rocks at least 3.77 billion years old, offer the earliest physical evidence of life. These microorganisms lived within hydrothermal vent precipitates shortly after the formation of oceans during the Hadean period, and they resemble modern hydrothermal vent bacteria, supporting the idea that life originated in such an environment. Evidence of early life has been found in rocks from Makilia Island in Greenland, which date back to 3.7 billion years ago and have shown biogenic carbon isotopes. Biogenic graphite has also been found in metasedimentary rocks in southwestern Greenland dating back 3.7 billion years, and in microbial mat fossils in Western Australian sandstone from 3.49 billion years ago. Other parts of the Igua supercrustal belt in Greenland contain graphite inclusions connected to the other elements of life: oxygen, nitrogen, and possibly phosphorus in the form of phosphate, providing further evidence for life at least 3.7 billion years ago. Stromatolites, layered structures created by photosynthetic microorganisms, including cyanobacteria, have been found in the Dresser Formation in Western Australia that dates back 3.48 billion years. These stromatolites lie within undefined hydrothermal sedimentary strata, indicating a biogenic origin. In the Pilbara region of Western Australia, evidence of early life was found in paired-bearing sandstone in a fossilized beach, with rounded tubular cells that oxidize sulfur by photosynthesis without oxygen. Parts of the Dresser Formation also preserve hot springs on land, while other regions appear to have been shallow seas. All of these findings suggest that life on Earth is ancient and likely originated in extreme environments such as hydrothermal vents or hot springs. Victor Moritz Goldschmidt, founder of modern geochemistry and crystal chemistry, Goldschmidt developed a classification system for minerals based on their chemical composition, which he called geochemical distribution laws. He also created the concept of solid solution, describing how minerals can form from a mixture of chemical elements. In addition to his contributions to mineralogy and geochemistry, Goldschmidt also had some theories on the origins of life. He proposed that life could have emerged from a primordial soup of organic compounds from chemical reactions in the early Earth's oceans. He believed that the energy for these reactions came from the sun's radiation and lightning strikes. Goldschmidt also hypothesized that the abundance of certain elements on Earth, such as carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen, played a crucial role in the development of life. He believed that these elements, which are abundant in the Earth's crust, were essential building blocks for the formation of complex organic molecules and the emergence of life. Overall, Goldschmidt's theories on the origins of life were rooted in his understanding of geochemistry and the chemical processes that shape the Earth's environment. While his ideas about the primordial soup and the role of certain elements in the emergence of life have been refined and expanded upon by later scientists, his contributions to the field of geochemistry have had a lasting impact on the study of the Earth's composition and the origins of life. Chapter 5. Scoping Review. Challenges to the out of Africa theory in their respective fields. Recent challenges have made the once dominant out of Africa theory vulnerable to scrutiny. Evidence from ancient DNA indicates interbreeding, or introgression, between modern humans and other human groups, such as Neanderthals and Denisovans, invalidating the theory's near-pure replacement proposition. Furthermore, a report in 2017 suggested that African mtDNA genes had flowed into Neanderthals over 270,000 years ago, which contradicts the theory's assumptions about early modern humans' departure from Africa. In the same year, redating a Homo sapiens fossil skull from Jebel al-Raud, Morocco, to 315,000 years ago means that humans appeared in Africa over 100,000 years earlier than previously thought, and in North Africa instead of East Africa. This redating prompted other researchers to suggest that features associated with Homo sapiens may have evolved in East Asia and been carried to Africa, given the similarities between the Jebel al-Raud skull and the Dali skull from China, which dates back to approximately 260,000 years ago. This implies that our origins were not solely African, as the out of Africa theory proposed. Anthropologist Sanghili argues that the traditional presuppositions at the core of the discipline of human evolution are being challenged by a new generation of researchers and evidence that suggests a more complex and less clear-cut origin of modern humans. Rather than a distinct and isolated species, the origins of modern humans may involve blurred boundaries and messy roots. Lee proposes a global multi-regional evolution approach where modern humans emerge at different times and places as a continuation of indigenous populations. Ironically, the multi-regionalism model, which was once discredited, is now being embraced, despite being regarded as falsified even by evolutionists in their strictest versions. Jawbone discovery challenges out of Africa model, inner remarkable discovery, a human maxilla, and teeth, dated to be between 177,000 to 194,000 years old, have been found in Mislia Cave, Israel. The cave's roof had collapsed 160,000 years ago, sealing the remains along with stone tools and other debris. Before this, evidence of humans outside of Africa dated back only 90,000 to 120,000 years ago in the Levant region. Israel Hershkovitz, the lead author of the study from Tel Aviv University, suggests that the out-of-Africa model, which posits a single migration of humans out of Africa approximately 60,000 years ago, can be disputed with this latest evidence. Eric Trenkaus of Washington University in St. Louis. According to Eric Trenkaus of Washington University in St. Louis, the evolution of teeth in Asia remains shrouded in mystery, as too little information is currently available. Nonetheless, several fossils found in Israel and China present more compelling evidence for modern humans outside Africa. The Mislia cave jaw, for instance, could date back 150,000 years, while the chin shape of the Girondin mandible in Guizhou province is indicative of modern humans, although the bone itself is over 100,000 years old. Trenkaus asserts that this data suggests that modern humans were present in parts of Southeast Asia and South China around 50,000 to 60,000 years ago. The multi-regional evolution of humans by Alan Thorne and Milford Wolpoff. In opposition to the out-of-Africa theory, the regional continuity theory suggests that early human ancestors dispersed across the globe over 1 million years ago, with modern humans developing independently in various regions through separate evolutionary paths and interbreeding. Leading paleontologist supports this perspective, Dr. Milford Wolpoff of the University of Michigan, who believes that recent discoveries challenge the out-of-Africa theory by indicating that Neanderthals and modern humans are of the same species and that Neanderthals contributed their genes to the European gene pool. Despite only a small percentage of Neanderthal genes remaining in modern European populations, the genetic makeup of Europe has been influenced by migration and invasions. Dr. Wolpoff argues that additional research is necessary to differentiate the effects of interbreeding from other evolutionary changes due to environmental factors. In conjunction with Yu Zinzi from the Institute of Vertebrate Paleontology and Paleoanthropology in Beijing, they have developed a comprehensive theory of human evolution, referred to as multi-regional evolution. This theory posits that the defining characteristics of primary human groups, such as Asians, Australians, and Europeans, arose gradually over a prolonged period within the geographical regions where these groups are presently located. Genetic information can only explain the potential origins of modern humans if the assumptions used to interpret the genes are accurate. Still, it cannot be used to test one theory against another. While mitochondrial DNA can contribute to the development of theories, only fossils can provide the basis for refuting or supporting hypotheses. The fossil record offers tangible evidence for human evolution and is abundant in both human remains and archaeological sites dating back 1 million years. Thorne and Wolpoff aim to present a theory incorporating all available knowledge about modern human fossils, archaeology, and genes. In contrast to genetic data, fossils can be matched with theories about the past without relying on numerous assumptions. The efficacy of a theory is determined by its ability to account for all available data, and the scientific method requires the integration of all sources of information into a cohesive explanatory theory. The theory, which posits a single origin of modern humans in Africa, cannot achieve this level of synthesis. The lack of any new technologies also presents a significant challenge to the theory of a global invasion. Thorne and Wolpoff argue that if a worldwide replacement of all indigenous populations by the descendants of Eve truly happened, it would be reasonable to expect to discover some archaeological evidence of the successful behaviors that facilitated such an event. However, no such evidence has been found upon examining the archaeological record in Asia. The absence of hand axes, a prevalent artifact in Africa, from the pre- and post-Ev periods in Eastern Asian technologies is a prime example. Even after 6 decades of research on the Asian Paleolithic record, no intrusive cultures or technologies have been identified. The absence of archaeological evidence for an invasion is similarly notable in Western Asia. where some researchers believe that the earliest modern humans outside of Africa can be found at the School and Capsa sites in Israel, as identified by Christopher B. Stringer of the Natural History Museum in London. The arrival of the first human inhabitants in Australia dates back more than 60,000 years ago. Evidence from their behavior and anatomy reveals they were modern human beings, displaying the Javan complex of features and further brain case expansions and modernizations. A significant number of well-preserved fossils from the late Pleistocene and early Holocene show that the same set of distinguishing features that set apart those Indonesian people from their contemporaries also distinguish modern Australian Aborigines from other living populations. If the earliest Australians were indeed descendants of Africans, as proposed by the Eve theory, the continuity of fossil features would only be apparent, requiring that all the features of the early Javans be re-evolved in the population of invaders. The chance of the repeated evolution of an individual feature would be rare, but the duplication of an entire set of unrelated features would be unprecedentedly improbable. Furthermore, Northern Asia presents evidence linking its modern and ancient inhabitants, involving different features from those of Australasia. This compounds the implausibility of the Eve theory by requiring the duplication of a second complete set of features in a different population. The authors state that persistent features of human skeletal structure can range from prominent and easily noticeable characteristics, such as the size and shape of the nose in Neanderthals and later Europeans, to much more minor details, like the form of the mandibular nerve canal opening in the lower jaw. The bony bridge covering the upper part of this opening is present in many Neanderthal specimens from Europe, but absent in others. This feature is observed in only a small percentage of European fossils from later periods and is rarely seen in Asian or Australian specimens. Furthermore, if the Eve theory is correct, mandibular traits and other skeletal features that differentiate modern humans from each other must have evolved twice in Europe. This evidence contradicts the prediction of the Eve theory, which suggests a complete replacement of local groups by African populations. A thorough analysis of human evolution patterns in different regions, such as Australasia, China, and Europe, shows that the earliest populations in these regions did not possess the complex features typical of Africans. The evidence points towards the continuity of various skeletal features between the earliest human populations and those currently living in different regions. There is no proof supporting the complete replacement of local groups by African populations. Thorne and Wolpoff state that if Africa were indeed the birthplace of humanity, where all contemporary human beings originated, it would be reasonable to anticipate discovering evidence of the shift from ancient to modern forms exclusively in that region. Some paleontologists, inspired by the work of German researcher Reimer Proch from Goethe University in Frankfurt, have proposed that modern Homo sapiens emerged in Africa, as they believe the oldest modern human-like remains were discovered there, and that these fossils exhibit modern African racial traits. However, the African evidence is limited, incomplete, and mostly inadequately dated. Additionally, certain materials appear inconsistent with the out-of-Africa hypothesis. The most comprehensively excavated remains originate from the Clayses River mouth cave and can be confidently dated between 80,000 and 100,000 years ago. Certain small and delicate skull fragments are utilized as evidence of the presence of modern humans. However, a comprehensive analysis of the entire sample by Rachel Kaspari from Albion College revealed that not all fragments appear modern. Only 2 of the 4 lower jaws exhibit modern characteristics, indicating insufficient evidence for a modern jaw. Furthermore, the lone cheekbone from the site is more significant than present-day Africans and more robust than the earlier transitional humans and archaic humans discovered in Africa. The assertion that this sample contains modern Africans is highly questionable and does not provide solid grounds for suggesting that the earliest modern humans emerged in Africa. The authors argue that despite debunking the exclusive African ancestry hypothesis for the living populations in many regions, and the absence of evidence demonstrating that modern humans first emerged in Africa, one can deduce that the predictions of the Eve theory cannot be validated. This raises questions about the possibility of misinterpreting mitochondrial DNA analysis, leading to a contradictory hypothesis. The primary issue with utilizing mitochondrial DNA to decipher recent evolutionary history originates from the aspect that provides its other benefits: cloning mitochondrial DNA during reproduction instead of recombination. owing to the maternal transmission of mitochondrial DNA. The potential for genetic drift and incidental loss of lines becomes significant. Some mitochondrial DNA vanishes whenever a generation does not produce daughters. The striking genetic resemblances among the entire human population do not indicate a recently shared origin for all living individuals. Instead, they reveal the outcomes of connections between people that can be traced back to when our forebears first inhabited the Old World over 1 million years ago. The authors argue that the fossil evidence supports the idea that populations in different regions of the world evolved independently and continuously over time, with gene flow between populations leading to shared ancestry. They note that the fossils found in the different areas show morphological similarities, suggesting that parallel evolution was taking place. Additionally, genetic evidence at the time, including analyses of mitochondrial DNA and blood proteins, supported the idea of gene flow and shared ancestry among different populations. The authors also note that the multi-regional theory provides a more nuanced and complex view of human evolution, which considers the various processes that shape the diversity of modern humans. Wolpoff and Thorndike acknowledge some challenges to the multi-regional model, including the fact that some regions have less fossil evidence than others, and that the genetic evidence at the time was limited. They also note that the out-of-Africa model cannot be completely ruled out, as some populations may have migrated out of Africa and contributed to the genetic makeup of modern humans. What are the limitations of mtDNA in this study? Advantages, possibilities, and limitations of mitochondrial DNA analysis in molecular identification. In the study, advantages, possibilities, and limitations of mitochondrial DNA analysis in molecular identification, the authors discussed several limitations of mtDNA analysis. One limitation is that mtDNA analysis cannot provide information about the identity of individuals in cases where there are multiple contributors to the sample. In addition, the authors noted that there is a possibility of contamination during the amplification and sequencing process, which can lead to inaccurate results. Furthermore, the authors highlighted that mtDNA analysis could be less informative than nuclear DNA analysis in certain cases, as mtDNA variation is much lower than that of nuclear DNA. Another limitation of mtDNA analysis is that it is more challenging to distinguish between individuals with the same mtDNA sequence, which can limit its usefulness in certain contexts. Misconceptions about mitochondria and mammalian fertilization. Implications for theories on human evolution. The article Misconceptions about Mitochondria and Mammalian Fertilization. Implications for Theories on Human Evolution by Friedrich and Kell Simmons and Jim Cummins challenges the conventional view of strict maternal inheritance of mitochondria and, by extension, mitochondrial DNA. The authors assert that it is a misconception that the sperm tail, which contains mitochondria, is excluded from the embryo during fertilization. They clarify that in most mammals, including humans, mitochondria from the midpiece of the sperm can indeed be identified in the embryo, although their ultimate fate is not definitively known. This discussion seems particularly relevant to the African Eve hypothesis of human evolution, which posits a recent common African ancestor for all living humans based on mtDNA lineage. The strict maternal inheritance of mitochondria and mtDNA is a cornerstone of this theory. The authors argue that the misconception of the missing mitochondria from the paternal line has been perpetuated primarily because it supports this model. As such, the article aims to rectify this misconception and its implications for our understanding of mitochondrial inheritance, fertilization, and theories of human evolution. It emphasizes the need for a more nuanced understanding of mitochondrial inheritance and its impact on our interpretation of evolutionary models. Reappraising the Human Mitochondrial DNA Recombination Dogma. The article Reappraising the Human Mitochondrial DNA Recombination Dogma by Simon Pryor et al. Challenges the prevailing belief in the field of genetics that human mitochondrial DNA does not undergo recombination. Recombination is a process during which genetic material is mixed, typically seen in nuclear DNA, but has been thought to be absent or exceedingly rare in mtDNA. The mitochondrial leaf theory has been a cornerstone in studying human variation and evolution, positing a single common maternal ancestor for all humans. This theory, and many other human evolution and variation studies, have operated under the assumption that human mtDNA is exclusively maternally inherited and does not recombine. However, this study provides evidence to the contrary. The researchers present compelling evidence that recombination occurs in human mtDNA using direct and indirect approaches, including single-molecule PCR and analysis of whole mitochondrial genomes from over 15,000 individuals. The authors argue that the evidence is sufficient to reject the non-recombination dogma of human mtDNA. Acknowledging recombination as a frequent event in human mtDNA has significant implications for our understanding of human evolutionary history, including the timing of haplogroup divergences and the time to the most recent common mitochondrial ancestor. It also impacts the understanding of mitochondrial disease etiology and transmission, which often rely on the assumption of strict maternal inheritance without recombination. This research, therefore, may necessitate a shift in how we study and interpret mtDNA in both evolutionary and medical contexts. Chapter 6. Simultaneous Quantum Biogenesis Theory, moving the origins of human life from the field of archaeology and paleoanthropology. The out-of-Africa theory in paleoanthropology and archaeology has been valuable for understanding human evolution and migration patterns. However, there is a growing need to expand our understanding of human origins beyond these traditional fields and into the realms of biochemistry, quantum physics, and geology. One way to achieve this is by emphasizing the chemical formation that allows life on planet Earth. Life as we know it relies on the presence of certain chemical elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These elements are abundant in the universe and were formed in stars through processes such as nucleus synthesis and supernova explosions. These elements then combine to form molecules such as water, amino acids, and nucleotides, which are the building blocks of life. Current evidence suggests that the most primitive forms of life preserved in rock records were similar in complexity to modern bacteria. However, there must have been some transitional entities between simple organic molecules and bacterial cells. Researchers are trying to discover this transitional process in the field of the origin of life. Defining the characteristics of a living cell is essential to simulate this process experimentally. It is also crucial in the search for extraterrestrial life, as it defines what life is and what biosignatures to look for. Defining life has been a challenging task, but it is widely agreed that all extant life forms share three fundamental features. Firstly, a lipid bilayer membrane is essential to define cell boundaries and perform various functions. Secondly, a DNA-based system transmits genetic information and enables evolution through natural selection. Thirdly, all cells require metabolism to synthesize and break down complex molecules, providing the necessary molecules and energy for cell survival and reproduction. Molecular building blocks of life, such as phospholipids, DNA/RNA, proteins, and adenosine phosphates, are related to these three characteristic features. The chemical environment of early Earth played a crucial role in forming these molecules. The early Earth was a hot and violent place, with frequent volcanic activity and intense lightning storms. These conditions provided the energy and raw materials necessary for the formation of organic molecules from quasi-inorganic precursors. One of the most famous experiments in the study of the origin of life is the Miller experiment, which demonstrated that amino acids could be formed from a mixture of gases that simulated the conditions of the early Earth. To investigate the chemical genesis of life in specific conditions, the experiment employed a combination of water, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and an electric arc, which mimicked the assumed lightning that existed in the early Earth's environment. Other experiments have shown that nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA, can also be formed under similar conditions. The formation of these molecules led to the development of self-replicating systems, the first step toward life. By understanding the chemical basis of life, we can gain a deeper understanding of the origin and evolution of life on Earth. Chemical building blocks of life are fundamental components that make up the biological molecules necessary for life, such as DNA, RNA, and proteins. These building blocks are made up of chemical elements originating from the universe and are found in every living organism on Earth. Again, this transcends any one landmass. The origin of life on Earth and its relationship to the universe is a fascinating topic that has intrigued scientists and researchers for centuries. The formation of life on Earth is related to the chemical makeup of the universe, particularly the presence of certain elements that are necessary for life to exist. One of the most critical elements for the formation of life is carbon. Carbon is life's basic building block and a fundamental component of all organic molecules. It can form strong covalent bonds with other elements, creating a wide range of organic compounds, such as carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. These compounds make up the essential components of living organisms. Another essential element for life is oxygen, which is involved in the process of respiration, allowing organisms to produce energy. Oxygen is necessary for respiration, which is the process by which cells generate energy. Water is another essential component for life, as it is a universal solvent that allows for biochemical reactions to take place. Water is also involved in transporting nutrients and waste products throughout the body. Nitrogen is another essential chemical for life, a key component of nucleic acids and proteins. Nucleic acids such as DNA and RNA are necessary for storing and transmitting genetic information. At the same time, proteins are necessary for a wide range of biological functions, including catalyzing chemical reactions, providing structural support, and transporting molecules. Other essential chemicals for life include phosphorus and sulfur. Phosphorus is necessary for the formation of nucleic acids and is a component of many cellular processes. Sulfur is found in many proteins, which is essential for these molecules' proper folding and function. Melanin is another chemical that plays a critical role in human biology. Melanin is a pigment responsible for the color of human skin, hair, and eyes. Melanin is formed from the amino acid tyrosine through a complex biochemical pathway that involves several enzymes. It is also involved in various biological processes, including the regulation of circadian rhythms and protection against UV radiation. The origins of melanin are still the subject of ongoing research, but some scientists believe that melanin may have originated in space. Researchers have detected melanin-like compounds in meteorites and interstellar dust, suggesting that these compounds may have played a role in the formation of life on Earth. Furthermore, melanin plays a vital role in protecting living organisms from the harmful effects of radiation, and recent studies have shown that melanin can also act as a semiconductor, allowing for the conversion of light energy into chemical energy, similar to photosynthesis in plants. While the out of Africa theory has been the dominant paradigm for understanding human evolution, a chemical perspective offers a compelling alternative that emphasizes the importance of the chemical building blocks of life and their origins in the universe. Indigenous and African cultures recognize the formation of life in their creation stories, where they attribute the origin of life to the universe and stars. For example, the Dogon people of Mali have a creation story that explains how their ancestors came from the Sirius star system, and their understanding of the cosmos is believed to have influenced their social and religious practices. Developing a theory for the development of human life based on the chemical building blocks of life, quantum physics, and biogenesis requires an understanding of each of these concepts. Biogenesis is a biological principle that states that life can only arise from pre-existing life, not from non-living matter. This principle is fundamental to our understanding of life and biological processes, contrasting the concept of spontaneous generation, which proposed that life could spontaneously arise from non-living matter. This process likely occurred on Earth approximately 4 billion years ago, at a time when the planet was devoid of life as we know it. The conditions for biogenesis are believed to have included the presence of water, a source of energy such as lightning, and the necessary organic compounds. It may have been a gradual process involving forming a suitable planet, synthesizing organic molecules, molecular self-replication, self-assembly, autocatalysis, and the emergence of cell membranes. Louis Pasteur, a French biologist, provided experimental evidence supporting the concept of biogenesis. In the mid-19th century, he performed a series of experiments demonstrating that organisms such as bacteria do not arise spontaneously in broth, but instead come from outside sources, such as dust particles in the air. Life on Earth depends on the chemistry of carbon and water, and it relies on 4 major classes of chemicals: lipids for cell membranes, carbohydrates such as sugars, amino acids for protein metabolism, and nucleic acids, DNA, and RNA for the mechanisms of heredity. They are thought to have been synthesized in the early Earth, oceans, and atmosphere through a combination of abiotic and biotic processes. These compounds can then combine to form more complex molecules, such as proteins, RNA, and DNA, which are essential for life as we know it. Self-replicating molecules, or their constituents, are the focus of many approaches to biogenesis. Researchers believe that current life descended from an RNA world, although other self-replicating molecules may have existed before RNA. Producing molecules during the prebiotic synthesis stage is crucial to the origin of life. All the chemical elements in the universe, except hydrogen and helium, are formed through stellar nucleus synthesis. Stellar nucleus synthesis is the process by which elements are created within stars by combining the protons and neutrons together from the nuclei of lighter elements. Fusion inside stars transforms hydrogen into helium, heat, and radiation. All of the atoms in the universe began as hydrogen. Complex organic molecules, including those required for life, form naturally in space and on planets through the molecular synthesis in molecular clouds and circumstellar envelopes. The essential ingredients for life, such as carbon-hydrogen molecules, the carbon-hydrogen positive ion, and the carbon ion, were produced through ultraviolet radiation from stars. Organic molecules on early Earth could have originated either from terrestrial sources, with organic molecule synthesis triggered by impact shocks, or other energy sources, such as ultraviolet light, redox coupling, or electrical discharges, or from extraterrestrial sources, where organic molecules were formed in interstellar dust clouds raining down on the planet. Where does quantum come in? Quantum physics governs the behavior of electrons, and electrons are crucial in forming chemical bonds, which are the basis for all of chemistry, including biochemistry. So in a broad sense, quantum mechanics indirectly creates life by allowing the complex chemistry that underpins life to occur. Quantum physics is the branch of physics that studies the behavior of matter and energy at the atomic and subatomic levels. At this scale, the classical laws of physics that govern the macroscopic world no longer apply, and quantum mechanics takes over. It's fundamentally important to chemistry and biology because it provides the rules governing how these particles behave and interact. These interactions underpin all of chemistry and biology. Here's a look at how quantum mechanics underlies these fields. Chemistry. At the heart of chemistry are chemical reactions, which involve the making and breaking of chemical bonds. These bonds are formed due to the interactions of the atom's electrons. Quantum mechanics describes these interactions. For example, the Schrödinger equation, a fundamental equation in quantum mechanics, can be used to calculate the behavior of electrons in atoms and molecules. This includes information about the electron's energy levels, which helps predict how atoms will interact and form bonds with other atoms. The concept of electron spin, another quantum property, is also central to the structure of the periodic table of elements. Biology, at its most basic level, is the study of life and living organisms, which are made up of cells. These cells are made up of molecules, which are, in turn, made up of atoms. So, at the most fundamental level, biology also depends on the principles of quantum mechanics. The absorption of light by molecules is a process that quantum mechanics can describe. For example, photosynthesis, which is fundamental to life on Earth, involves the absorption of light made up of particles called photons by a molecule called chlorophyll. The energy from this light is then used to power a chemical reaction. Similarly, our understanding of how enzymes work to catalyze reactions, how DNA stores and transmits genetic information, and how nerves transmit signals involves understanding the behavior of molecules, which quantum mechanics ultimately governs. In summary, quantum physics is intimately connected to the formation of human life, from the behavior of atoms and molecules to the transfer of energy within and between living systems. The potential connection between quantum mechanics and melanin suggests that there may be even more to discover about the role of quantum physics in the development and function of living organisms. However, whether quantum effects play a significant or unique role in biological processes is still an open question in science. Here are a few areas where researchers are investigating potential quantum effects. Photosynthesis. Some research has suggested that quantum coherence, where particles are correlated and can exist in multiple states at once, might play a role in the efficiency of photosynthesis. the process by which plants and some other organisms convert sunlight into chemical energy. Enzyme action. Enzymes are biological catalysts that speed up chemical reactions in the body. Some researchers investigate whether quantum tunneling, where particles pass through barriers they could not in classical physics, plays a role in some enzyme catalyzed reactions. Sense of smell. One hypothesis for how our sense of smell works, known as the quantum vibration theory, suggests that smell could involve a quantum mechanical process. However, this theory is still controversial and not widely accepted. DNA mutations. Some researchers have proposed that quantum tunneling might play a role in spontaneous mutations in DNA, although this is still largely speculative. Finally, recent research has suggested a potential connection between quantum mechanics and the properties of melanin. Melanin has been shown to have electrical and magnetic properties that indicate a connection to quantum physics. This has led to speculation that melanin may play a role in transferring energy within and between living systems, and may even be involved in processes such as photosynthesis. Quantum physics also plays a crucial role in the formation and maintenance of life. Energy, which is a fundamental concept in quantum physics, is essential for all life processes. The sun provides energy to Earth, which is captured by photosynthetic organisms and used to create organic compounds through the process of photosynthesis. Energy is also required for chemical reactions within the body, such as the breakdown of food into energy that cells can use. Electromagnetism and atomic/molecular interactions. Atoms are made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Protons carry a positive electric charge, electrons have a negative charge, and neutrons are electrically neutral. The electromagnetic force is responsible for the attraction between the positively charged nucleus composed of protons and neutrons and the negatively charged electrons. This attraction holds the electrons in the nucleus's vicinity and forms the atom structure. When atoms come together to form molecules, it's also the electromagnetic force at play. The electrons of one atom are attracted to the nucleus of the other, and vice versa. This mutual attraction can lead to the sharing or transfer of electrons, forming covalent or ionic bonds, respectively. Tying it to quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics provides a framework for understanding how these electromagnetic interactions happen at the atomic and molecular levels. The quantum mechanical model of the atom treats the electrons as clouds of negative charge that exist in specific regions around the nucleus called orbitals. Each orbital corresponds to a particular energy level of the electron. Simultaneous quantum biogenesis theory. The speculative narrative involves quantum energy, the chemical building blocks of life like amino acids and nucleotides, and biogenesis. Remember, this is purely hypothetical and not supported by current scientific consensus. Quantum energy from outer space. In the vastness of outer space, quantum energy fluctuations produce particles and antiparticles that spontaneously appear and annihilate each other. These fluctuations could have played a role in forming stars and galaxies in the early universe. As stars form and evolve, they undergo nuclear reactions that create heavier elements, which are later scattered into space during supernova explosions or the formation of planetary nebulae. The universe is teeming with quantum energy through cosmic rays and other high-energy particles. These cosmic rays, composed primarily of protons and atomic nuclei, originate from outer space and constantly bombard the Earth. Some theories suggest that these high-energy particles might have played a role in the origin of life by providing the energy needed to trigger the formation of complex organic molecules from simpler precursors. This process is related to the idea of panspermia, which proposes that life for the building blocks of life might have originated in space and been delivered to Earth via meteorites or comets. The panspermia hypothesis suggests that life exists throughout the universe and can be spread via asteroids, comets, and interstellar dust. Suppose these complex organic molecules created by cosmic ray interactions are embedded in comets and asteroids. During a period known as the Late Heavy Bombardment about 4 billion years ago, the Earth was hit by many such celestial bodies. Assume that these impacts delivered these complex organic molecules to our young planet. Chemical building blocks of life. Some of these heavier elements eventually find their way to a young planetary system, becoming part of the material that forms rocky planets like Earth. Among these elements are carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, which are essential for forming the chemical building blocks of life, such as amino acids, nucleotides, and lipids. These molecules can be produced from simpler precursors under the right conditions, as demonstrated by experiments like the Millery experiment. If we imagine that the energy from cosmic rays could trigger these kinds of reactions, we might have a connection between quantum energy from outer space and the formation of the building blocks of life. Regardless of the location on Earth, the necessary conditions for life would need to be present. This includes the availability of the basic building blocks of life such as carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, liquid water, and a source of energy. These conditions are thought to have existed in many places on Earth billions of years ago, not just in Africa. These basic elements would combine to form simple organic molecules, such as amino acids and nucleotides, through various chemical reactions, possibly catalyzed by minerals or aided by energy from natural phenomena like volcanic activity, sunlight, or lightning. Electromagnetism. The chemical reactions that lead to the formation of complex molecules from simpler precursors are governed by electromagnetism. The electromagnetic force holds atoms together to form molecules and dictates how these molecules interact with each other. This force allows life's building blocks to come together to create more complex structures like proteins and DNA. Electromagnetism plays a crucial role in the interactions between these atoms and molecules, as it governs the behavior of charged particles like protons and electrons. It's responsible for the formation of chemical bonds and the stability of molecules. Biogenesis. On the early Earth, conditions were favorable for forming complex organic molecules, possibly aided by energy from lightning, volcanic activity, or cosmic radiation. These energy sources could have provided the necessary activation energy for chemical reactions, forming life's basic building blocks. Electromagnetic forces would be responsible for the interactions between these molecules, allowing them to combine and form more complex structures. Over time, these complex molecules may have become enclosed within lipid membranes, creating simple cell-like structures. Within these structures, molecules like RNA could have begun to self-replicate, allowing for the storage and transmission of genetic information. This process marks the beginning of biogenesis, the process by which life arises naturally from simple organic compounds. This involves assembling these complex molecules into structures like cells, the simplest units of life. Once life emerges, the process of evolution by natural selection takes over. The most successful life forms those best adapted to their environment while survive and reproduce, passing on their traits to subsequent generations. Over billions of years, this process would lead to a vast diversity of life, including developing multicellular organisms and, eventually, complex animals. It's still not fully understood how this step occurred. Still, it likely involved a long process of chemical evolution, with the structures that were most effective at replicating themselves becoming more and more prevalent. Formation of human life. As life on Earth evolved over billions of years, it eventually gave rise to the first multicellular organisms and, later, the first animals, plants, and fungi. The human lineage emerged from a long line of ancestral species, each building on the genetic and biochemical foundations laid down by earlier life forms. This process was driven by the mechanisms of evolution, including natural selection and genetic drift, which led to the gradual accumulation of genetic material DNA changes over generations. This part doesn't deviate from our current understanding of biological evolution. Instead of this happening only in Africa, let's imagine that isolated populations of hominin species in various parts of the world independently evolved into separate groups of Homo sapiens. This could theoretically have occurred if these populations faced similar evolutionary pressures that favored the development of traits characteristic of Homo sapiens, such as even larger brains and advanced tool-making abilities. Genetic exchange between these populations, facilitated by migration and interbreeding, could help spread beneficial mutations, further driving the evolution toward modern humans. This theory combines quantum energy in the form of cosmic rays, the building blocks of life, electromagnetism, and biogenesis into a story of the formation of human life. Putting it all together, the chemical building blocks of life, amino acids, nucleotides, carbohydrates, and lipids are universal, and the processes that led to their formation on the early Earth could have occurred anywhere where the necessary conditions existed. These conditions include the presence of the basic elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, liquid water, and a source of energy, such as sunlight or volcanic activity. Once these building blocks were formed, they could combine in various ways to form more complex molecules, eventually leading to the first self-replicating molecules, such as RNA. This is a critical step in biogenesis, the process of life arising naturally from organic compounds. Now, let's imagine that these processes occurred independently in various regions worldwide, leading to the emergence of simple life forms in these regions. Over billions of years, these life forms would evolve, diversify, and become more complex, eventually leading to the development of multicellular organisms. As these organisms continue to evolve, they would adapt to their specific environments, leading to a great diversity of life. In some of these regions, conditions might have been favorable for the evolution of organisms with traits that are characteristic of hominins, such as bipedalism and increased brain size. For example, regions with diverse and changing environments could have favored the development of these traits, as they would require organisms to adapt to a wide range of conditions and challenges. Bipedalism could have been advantageous in environments where it was beneficial to see over tall grasses or to free up the hands for using tools. Increased brain size could have been favored in environments where problem-solving abilities and social cooperation were critical for survival. In this way, populations of hominin-like creatures could have emerged independently in different parts of the world. Over time, these populations could continue to evolve in response to their specific environmental conditions, eventually leading to the emergence of an atomically modern humans Homo sapiens. Indigenous and African cultures have long recognized the connection between the universe and the origin of human life. Many creation stories from these cultures involve the universe, stars, and celestial bodies in forming life. This recognition of the universe's role and its chemical building blocks in the development of life can be seen as an early form of scientific inquiry and understanding. In summary, a sound theory for the development of human life based on the chemical building blocks of life, quantum physics, electromagnetism, and biogenesis would suggest that the formation of life on Earth resulted from the right conditions and the presence of the necessary organic compounds. Energy from the sun played a crucial role in the formation and maintenance of life, and the properties of atoms and molecules at the quantum level may have allowed for the formation of complex molecules. One possible theory for the development of human life on all continents is based on the fact that the chemical building blocks of life are not restricted to any single land mass. Therefore, it is possible that human life could have emerged independently on multiple continents without the need for a single origin or migration pattern. This theory offers an alternative to the out of Africa theory by emphasizing the fundamental role of chemistry, energy, and quantum physics in the development of human life. The analogy of a tree can be used to illustrate this theory. A tree can be found on several continents, each with different variations, yet it is still a tree. Similarly, humans may have developed on different continents with various adaptations, but they are still fundamentally human. This theory challenges the notion of a single origin for human life and suggests that diversity in human populations may have arisen simultaneously and independently on different continents. In essence, just like a tree can be found on multiple continents without a single origin or migration pattern, humans could have emerged independently on multiple continents. While there may be variations in human populations, the fundamental building blocks of life, the role of melanin, electromagnetism, the potential for biogenesis, and the impact of quantum mechanics suggest that human life could have developed simultaneously and independently on all continents. It has been scientifically proven that people with dark skin can live on all continents, including those outside of Africa. While it is true that people of African descent tend to have higher levels of melanin, which is responsible for darker skin pigmentation, this does not mean that melanin has its origins solely in Africa. In fact, melanin is a naturally occurring pigment that is found throughout the universe, not just on the African continent. The sun shines everywhere on the planet, and the amount of sunlight and heat that a particular region receives is determined by various factors, including latitude, elevation, and atmospheric conditions. For example, the southern United States can experience hotter temperatures than certain parts of Africa, yet people have lived in the southern United States for centuries. Furthermore, the idea that dark-skinned individuals must have migrated from Africa due to their skin color is a fallacy. Additionally, it has been well documented that ancient civilizations and cultures in various parts of the world had populations with darker skin pigmentation long before any known migrations from Africa. For example, the indigenous peoples of Australia, India, and the Americas have darker skin pigmentation, and there is evidence of their presence in those regions dating back tens of thousands of years. In conclusion, the presence of people with dark skin pigmentation in all continents is not evidence of migration or origin from a single location. Instead, it is a natural occurrence that is found worldwide and can be explained by various factors, including genetics, environment, and natural selection. Again, the chemical building blocks of life are not restricted to any one land mass and may have risen through a natural process in which life occurs from organic compounds. To fully understand the origins of human beings, we must use a multidisciplinary approach that incorporates more fields than paleoanthropology and archaeology. By combining different fields of study, such as biochemistry, quantum physics, and biology, we can better understand human origins. Chapter 7. Let us talk about melanin and the role it plays in life. Melanin is a pigment that is found in a wide range of organisms, including humans. It is responsible for skin color, hair, and eyes. Melanin acts as a natural sunscreen, protecting early humans from the harsh UV radiation of the sun. It also acts as an antenna for receiving and processing environmental energy. Melanin may have played a role in developing and adapting human life on different continents. One of the most fascinating aspects of melanin is its presence throughout the universe. Melanin is found in various cosmic phenomena, including stars, comets, and interstellar dust. This has led some to speculate that melanin may have played a role in the origin of life on Earth and elsewhere in the universe. In recent years, researchers have discovered that melanin has unique properties that suggest a potential connection to quantum physics. Melanin is known to absorb light, which is a form of energy. When light is absorbed by melanin, it causes electrons within the pigment to become excited and move to a higher energy state. This process is similar to what happens in quantum physics, where electrons and atoms absorb and emit energy in the form of photons. Furthermore, studies have shown that melanin exhibits electrical and magnetic properties. This process is because melanin comprises long chains of highly conjugate molecules, meaning they can conduct electricity. Melanin exhibits both electrical and magnetic properties, suggesting that it could play a role in the body's ability to sense and interact with electromagnetic fields. This could be especially important in the brain, where electromagnetic fields are known to play a role in neural communication. Melanin, a biopolymer composed of phenolic and indolic compounds, is a ubiquitous pigment found throughout the animal and plant kingdoms. Its functions range from photoprotection to thermoregulation and even acting as a semiconducting material. The widespread distribution of melanin has led to the question of its origins and whether it originated in a specific geographical location. While it is commonly believed that melanin may have originated in Africa due to the high concentration of people with dark skin, the scientific community cannot definitively prove this assertion. This is because melanin has been found to exist in various forms in various environments, including the universe, soil, and even in birds' feathers. In addition, recent studies have shown that melanin may have evolved independently in different organisms, further supporting the idea that its origins cannot be traced to a single location or population. Furthermore, the precise biochemical mechanisms responsible for melanin synthesis and regulation are still not wholly understood, complicating any attempts to determine its exact origins. In light of these challenges, scientists must continue studying the properties and functions of melanin to gain a deeper understanding of its role in the natural world. This will require a multidisciplinary approach that draws on insights from fields such as biochemistry, biophysics, and evolutionary biology, as well as consideration of the potential impact of quantum effects on melanin's properties. In conclusion, while melanin is commonly associated with dark-skinned individuals and Africa, scientific evidence suggests that its origins cannot be definitively traced to any one location or population. Instead, it is a widespread and highly versatile pigment that has evolved independently in many different organisms and environments. As such, A thorough understanding of its properties and functions will require continued research across multiple disciplines and perspectives. Chapter 8. Melanated people are the first people of the earth. Melanated people can connect by honoring and respecting individual cultures and ethnicities. Melanated people need to assert their own narratives on the origins of human life rather than relying solely on the theories of others. Throughout history, melanated people have been the Earth's original inhabitants and developed their own unique stories and beliefs about creation. By telling our own stories, we can preserve our cultural identity and resist the erasure of our history. As interdimensional beings, we must recognize that our existence transcends the physical world and cannot be fully understood through empirical evidence alone. Our stories and beliefs reflect a deeper understanding of the universe and our place in it. We must honor and preserve our own perspectives on human origins rather than accepting a limited and Eurocentric view of our history. Knowledge is power, and by reclaiming our own narratives, we can empower ourselves and future generations to embrace their cultural heritage and resist the forces of cultural assimilation. We must not wait for other scientists to develop theories about our origins. We must take the initiative to tell our own stories and shape our understanding of the world. We have a unique connection to the universe and to Source. This connection is heightened by the presence of melanin in our bodies. Melanin is also believed to play a role in the perception of time and space and in the transmission of information between cells. As the first beings on planet Earth, dark-skinned people share a common ancestry and a unique connection to the planet and each other. This connection is based on the fact that all dark-skinned people share a form of melanin known as eumelanin, responsible for the brown and black pigments in our skin, hair, and eyes. This shared genetic heritage has led to the development of various cultural and spiritual traditions that celebrate the power and beauty of melanin. In essence, being an interdimensional being with melanin is a powerful and awe-inspiring experience connecting us to the universe profoundly. It is a reminder of our ancient and cosmic origins and our potential to tap into the vastness of the universe. Chapter 9. Dark-skinned indigenous people and Africans must develop their own scientific theories and honor their own creation stories. It is essential for all people, including indigenous and dark-skinned populations, to engage in scientific rigor when exploring the origins of humanity. However, it is also necessary to recognize and honor these communities' unique cultural and mythological traditions. Indigenous and dark-skinned communities have their own creation stories and beliefs about the origins of humanity, and these stories are an essential part of their identity and cultural heritage. While these stories may not necessarily align with current scientific theories, they should still be valued. At the same time, it is crucial to recognize that scientific inquiry is an essential tool for understanding our world and the origins of humanity. By engaging in scientific methods and research, we can better understand our shared history and origins as a species. Therefore, indigenous and dark-skinned communities must balance their cultural traditions with scientific inquiry, using their unique perspectives and knowledge to contribute to scientific research and discovery. Doing so, we can develop a more comprehensive understanding of human origins and ensure that all voices are heard and valued in pursuing knowledge. In particular, Africans must honor their own creation stories on the origin of human life and develop scientific models to support their beliefs. Too often, Africans do not question the production of knowledge about them. To be frank, Black Americans are more prone to scrutinize knowledge production from outsiders than Africans, and for a good reason. For instance, many African origin stories maintain apogenesis nature rather than monogenesis. So I find it odd that Africans would ignore their creation stories to promote human origin theories by Charles Darwin and Chris Stringer. Africans should be developing scientific theories on human origins, not regurgitating theories from British and American scientists. As a Black American, I put forth my own theory on human origins to deconstruct the power in knowledge production and preserve Black Americans' unique lineage. By acknowledging and embracing our cultural heritage, we can help prevent the erasure of our identity and culture, which has often been the case in the past. Melanated scholars and scientists should work to develop scientific models that are consistent with their cultural beliefs and creation stories. These models can help bridge the gap between traditional and scientific knowledge and provide a better understanding of the complex origins of humans. It is important to remember that dismissing one's history and cultural beliefs can harm a community's identity and sense of self. Melanated people must strive to honor and preserve their cultural heritage while embracing scientific inquiry and developing new ideas. Conclusion. In conclusion, the exploration of knowledge, particularly in the field of epistemology, holds great power in shaping our understanding of human origins. Once considered dominant, the out of Africa theory has faced challenges and alternative perspectives that call for reevaluating its assumptions. It is crucial for melanated people, historically marginalized and underrepresented in scientific discourse, to construct their own theories about human origins actively. Power knowledge lies in the ability to challenge existing narratives, question established theories, and seek alternative explanations that include diverse perspectives. By recognizing the importance of melanin and its connection to human life, indigenous and melanated cultures can draw upon their rich traditions, creation stories, and mythologies that often integrate cosmic and universal elements. These narratives provide a unique lens through which to explore human origins, emphasizing the interconnectedness of all beings and the role of melanin as a dynamic force. Constructing their own theories allows melanated people to reclaim agency in shaping the discourse surrounding human origins. By combining scientific rigor with cultural heritage, they can challenge the dominant narratives that have often neglected or marginalized their contributions. Through this engagement, a more comprehensive and nuanced understanding of human origins can emerge, integrating scientific inquiry, cultural perspectives, and the recognition of power knowledge. In embracing their own theories and narratives, melanated people contribute to a broader epistemological landscape, enriching the field of human origins research with diverse perspectives, alternative explanations, and deeper insights into the human experience. This process fosters inclusivity, dismantles oppressive knowledge structures, and empowers communities to reclaim their narratives. In this book, we embark on an intriguing journey to construct an alternative theory for the formation of human life. We considered critical scientific concepts such as quantum energy from outer space, the chemical building blocks of life, electromagnetism, and biogenesis, and envisioned their interconnected roles in this process. Quantum energy fluctuations, fundamental to the fabric of our universe, were conceived as a catalyst for creating heavier elements within stars. These elements, scattered across space during stellar events, eventually coalesced to form planets, including our Earth. This process delivered the essential elements for life: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, setting the stage for creating the chemical building blocks of life. These fundamental elements combine to form simple organic molecules like amino acids and nucleotides through a myriad of chemical reactions, possibly catalyzed by environmental conditions on early Earth. This marked the first step toward the emergence of life. Electromagnetism, one of the fundamental forces of nature, played a crucial role in shaping these building blocks. Governing the behavior of charged particles enabled the formation and stability of these molecules, thereby facilitating the formation of more complex structures. In this scenario, biogenesis occurred not just in one region but in multiple areas around the Earth. The self-replicating molecules encased in lipid membranes marked the first life forms, setting in motion the evolutionary machinery that led to a vast diversity of life forms over billions of years. Conditions in various regions around the world facilitated the evolution of hominin-like creatures, eventually leading to the emergence of Homo sapiens. The diversity of environments could have shaped the evolutionary path, leading to the development of characteristic traits of modern humans, such as increased brain size and advanced tool-making abilities. While this exploration is indeed speculative, it offers a thought-provoking perspective on how different scientific concepts can interweave to form a narrative for the formation of human life. It underscores the vast complexity of life's origins and the interconnectedness of cosmic and biological processes. This exercise is a testament to the intricate and fascinating story of our existence, a story that science continues to unravel.